It's so great. So one of the like counter arguments that I'd love to address very as we progress here is this idea. Well, you could say, well, you have this Ephesians 2:8, which says you're saved by grace alone, through your faith. But then you have like James 2, where it says faith without works is dead. And you would think that faith without it just seems like it's kind of going against this idea of being saved by faith alone. So how would you respond
Right.
to like a counter argument there?
Right. Even Luther struggled with James because Luther at first thought James was opposing Paul, and
Mm,
Luther made his famous quip that James was an epistle of straw. It was a
mm,
weak epistle as
mm.
opposed to Paul's letters. And of
Luther had
course,
the best insults.
he did. In fact, you probably know there's an app out there called the Luther Insulter where you get a daily insult from Luther. So you can look it up. It's called the Daily Luther Insulter.
Amazing.
So there are quotes from Luther where he insults you every day. You could check that out. But okay, let's put it this way. James actually mentions in chapter 2 about faith without works is dead, and then he actually says, and as you can see, a man is justified by works and not by faith alone. And so Roman Catholics and Orthodox will say, there you go. James is denying faith alone. No, he's not. We need to put James into context here. Remember, James is talking about, in chapter 2, he's talking about Christian behavior, the fruit of our faith. He's talking about living out the Christian life. So he uses an example of, some poor fella comes into your assembly and he doesn't have much, and you make him sit in the back because, you're embarrassed of his poverty and so forth. And James says, how can you do that? How can you show partiality that way? And then if someone is hungry and he comes to you and you just say, God bless you, off you go, God bless you. Well, you've given him a blessing, but his stomach is still empty. And James is concerned about action here. And the reason for that, Zach, is because in the church, James is addressing two types of people. There are those in the church who say, I have faith, but they got nothing to show for it. The proof's in the pudding. They got nothing to show for it. They're there every Sunday. They say they love Christ, but their lifestyle betrays them. And then you've got those who say, I have faith in Christ, and you see it. You see the fruit of the Holy Spirit in their lives. You could see Christ-like character there. And so what James is saying is this. James is saying, if you say you have faith and you do not have works, and here's the pivotal point, James says, will that faith save him? What faith? The faith that is bereft of any good works. That is a faith that doesn't produce works. Will that faith save him? And the implication is, no, it won't. Well, then James goes on to say, well, let's look at some examples from the Old Testament. He gives the example of Abraham, gives the example of Rahab. And then he says this, that you could see that they were justified by their works. Now this is really important. Paul is talking about justification before God, and that's by faith, because God looks at the heart. James is talking about justification before men who need to see our works. If they don't see our works, then they won't justify us. They won't say, hey, that's a godly Christian there. But if they see our works, right? Like Jesus said in Matthew 5:16, therefore let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and praise your Father who is in heaven. And so James is talking about action, showing action. So we're justified by works before men, not before God. We're justified by faith before God, not before men. And therefore, Paul is talking about the works of the law, right? No one can be justified by keeping the works of the law. James is talking about the works of faith. That's a different category. So it's apples and oranges. And therefore, James would totally agree with Paul that we are saved by faith alone, but before men, we are justified by our works because they cannot see our hearts. And so these are completely two different distinctions. Paul agrees with James, right? Didn't Paul say, Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works? Of course. Paul was not an antinomian. He believed that works are evidence of our faith, right? Titus 2:11, Christ created for himself a people who are zealous for good works. And therefore, we need to put James in context. What is James talking about? What is his whole argument? His argument is about true faith produces works, and we are justified by our works. In what context? Well, not before God, because Paul says no one can be justified before God by anything you do. And therefore, the context of James is showing our works before men.